Hello, nerds. I hope you all are doing good. And today, guess what? Today, we are going to talk about Christopher Marlowe and all of his plays. And there will be special focus on Dr. Faustus. So, gather round for this kind of juicy gossip from the Elizabethan era. So we are kind of diving into the world of Christopher Marlowe, and he was also the poet and the guy who rocked the English drama scene before Shakespeare stole the spotlight. So again, grab your cup of coffee and let's get into it. But before that, I always say whenever you're here, just like the video and also drop at least one comment in the chat box or comment box so I will know how many of you are there, right? So let's get started. So picture this. It's February 26th, 1564 in Canterbury, Kent, and little Marlowe gets baptized. Fast forward to May 30, 1593 in Deptford near London, and he, died at that time. And his life was kind of, way more dramatic than any of his play. And Marlowe was like the rock star of Elizabethan playwrights. People couldn't get enough of this play. Tamburlaine and everyone and their, everybody were also imitating it. So he practically owned the theatre scene, making him the kind of rock star in London before his mysterious and untimely demises. So this dude was kind of trendsetter, and especially when it came to using blank verse in his plays, blank verse became the bee's knees. Kind of for him was like the gold standard for that era. But here's the catch. Marlowe's plays were no walk in the park. They were all about these ambitious, over the top protagonists, and they think extreme violence, cruelty, and bloodshed galore. It was like Marlowe was catering to the Elizabethan audience's thirst for kind of wild and passionate displays. But wait, there is more. Like Marlowe's own life was just as scandalous as his play. When he died in 1593, there were all sorts of wild humor flying around. Some said he got into kind of crazy bar fight, while others claimed he dissed the church in a major way. And let's not forget the whispers of his scandalous love affair with the same teen. And conspiracy theories were flying left and right. And did another playwright betray him? Was he secretly an undercover agent involved in some kind of high level spy? Or maybe even the Privy Council of Elizabeth I had kind of had a hand in his demise? So it's like a Shakespearean, ward unit walks. So now hold your horses, because the official Connor's account of Marlowe's death only came out in 1925. They only know the exact death of Marlowe, and it was found out in 1925. Yes, you heard that right. Almost 300 years later. And guess what? It didn't clear up all the mysteries surrounding his life. Scholars are still scratching their heads trying to figure out what really went down out there. But anyway, so this was all about Marlowe's, and let's move his, of course we talked about his biography, and also let's talk about his literary career. So after 1587, Marlowe was living in London and writing for the theatres. And also he has some cousin trouble left and right with his wild and scandalous behavior. And he probably dabbled in some government work too. And Marlowe got himself a reputation for being an atheist. But who knows, maybe just had some, his funky religious opinions that didn't quite fit the norm in Queen Elizabethan era. So in Robert Greene's deathbed tract, the dude calls Marlowe a famous gracer of tragedian and gives him a scolding for saying things like, there is no God. And studying some pestilent Machiavellian policies. And so there is more evidence of his unorthodox phase, like that spy Richard Byne going on a rant against him, and Thomas Kidd writing a letter to the big shot Lord Keeper after Marlowe's death. Kidd actually claimed that papers denying the deity of Jesus Christ found in his room, which was actually belonged to Marlowe, who had also shared the room a couple of years prior. And Baines and Kidd both suggested Marlowe was all about that atheism and had a weird fascination with blasphemy. Now, we don't know whether it's true or not, because on May 18th, 1593, the Privy Council issued an order to arrest Marlowe. 2 days later, they ordered him to show up every day until they said. But guess what? On May 30th, this Marlowe met his ultimate end, and he got into a boarding house in Deptford and ended up getting stabbed by this guy Ingram Fraser, who was hanging out with some shady folks named Nicholas Scares and Robert Polly. So it was kind of bill dispute. I'm just kidding. But anyway, so this was all about his biography. And let's talk about his playwriting career. And he has some kind of kick-ass achievement in his playwriting career. So before even leaving Cambridge, he might have already written Tamburlaine the Great, and it was in 2 parts, performed by the end of 1587 and published around 1590. And while he was there, Marlowe did some fancy translation of Ovid's Amours, which was in English translates the Loves, and Lucan's Pharsalia. And he also teamed up with Thomas Nash to write the play Dido, Queen of Carthage, that we are going to discuss in our lecture as well. So things really took off for him with the production of Tamburlaine, and that play brought him fame and praise. And from then on, playwright was at his best. His playwriting was at his best. Both parts of Tamburlaine were published anonymously in 1590, though the publisher left out some parts that didn't quite fit in the serious historical tone of the play. But we can still say it was mostly Marlowe's work. No other plays, poems, or translation were published during his lifetime. All of these were published after his death. So, however, his unfinished masterpiece, Hero Leander, which is probably one of the best non-dramatic Elizabethan poem out there, and that we'll discuss in our poetry section. So anyway, now the order in which Marlowe wrote his plays after Tamburlaine is kind of a topic that keeps the scholars there, scratching their heads. And something, Faustus came right after Tamburlaine, and then Marlowe switched gears to write more socially themed play like Edward II. So if they won't even ask about his work of chronological order in the exam, because it's a very complicated topic and we still don't know about the exact time, so that might not come in your exam. But of course they'll ask about from Tamburlaine or Edward II. So these two are Tamburlaine and also our most famous play, Dr. Faustus. Edward II is also very important, and we'll know why it's very important just after at the end of this session. Anyway, his last play might have been The Jew of Malta, where he really pushed the boundary. We do not know that Tamburlaine, Faustus, and The Jew of Malta were performed by admiral's men, and that question actually came, like Marlowe was associated with which theatre company, and remember that, and that question also came in your previous year, I think 2020 itself, 2022, and that answer was admiral's men. So remember that. And of course their star actor was Edward Alleyn, who also played some of Shakespeare's character. And definitely he actually rocked the roles of Tamburlaine, Faustus, Barabbas, the Jew, and quite, he was very famous for that. And people also recognized him through these characters. So anyway, that's the, wild and wonderful journey of a good Marlowe. And he may have caused a A little bit problem, but definitely he left a mark on the world of literature that cannot be ignored. Right. And let's move on to his major works, which are, as you can see, the list over here, and we have also poetry and the translation, and we have mentioned here some all the plays anyway we are going to discuss, except this the massacre at Paris, the massacre at Paris, that we won't discuss. The rest of the play we will have a look on it. So anyway, the first play, as you can see, is Dido, Queen of Carthage. Then we have Tamburlaine, part 1 and part 2. They are there already. And the Jew of Malta, Dr. Faustus, Edward II, and the Massacre at Paris. The Massacre at Paris. Anyway, the poetry you can see, Amorous is there, the passionate shepherd to his love, and Hero and Leander. These two plays are quite important. So let's move a little bit. If we talk about Dido, it's actually co-written with Thomas Nash, and it's like that tag team debut, hitting the Elizabethan theatre scene in a style. And talk about a power duo, there you can see their masterwork. So hold up, there is another work, that is Tamburlaine, and this is about this bad boy who was like the first ever English play written in blank verse. So that is also important to, and because of that he was also called Marlowe's mighty line, remember? So Marlowe was like blank verse baby, and let's because this is kind of rhyming and go some poetic freedom, and this was actually make waves in theater world. Next we have got the Jew of Malta. So it's just simple, picture this, a dramatic tale of money, power and revenge. So it's like a complete Renaissance version of Ocean's 11, but this was more like backstabbing and mischief. Marlowe knew how to keep the audience on the edge of their seat. And then we have, of course, masterpiece Dr. Faustus. This play is a kind of dealing with the devil. The protagonist deals with the devil. The dark magic is there, and a whole lot of moral dilemma. So Faustus was like, give me all the give me all the knowledge and power. But little did he know, things were about to get real messy. And moving on to Edward II, picture this. This is kind of king, scandalous love affair, and a whole lot of political intrigue. So it's like a juicy episode of medieval soap opera. Marlowe knew how to keep the audience hooked even back in the days. There is one more, that is Massacre at Paris, and this is a play that's all about a massacre in Paris. And yes, it's not the happiest of topics, but it's theater, and sometimes we need a dose of reality with a dash of drama, right? And it's a great way to learn some history while being entertained. And then we have Marlowe's poetry, right? First is Amorous, and Amorous is like, it's kind of Latin elegiac couplets by Ovid, and they thought it was, at that time he translated it, and who can resist the charm of the passionate suffered to his love. And it was actually reply of Philip Sidney. No, sorry, it was dedicated to Philip Sidney, I guess. Anyway, I'll check it and post it, and if drop it in the comment. Edmund Spencer, I think it was the reply, or William Shakespeare, something like that is there. But anyway, last but not least, we have got that Hero and Leander, and Marlowe left it unfinished. George Chapman, the later, he actually completed it, and it's like that he left it and completed by George Chapman. So this was all about his major play. Now we'll move to his plays, and we'll start with the Dido, Queen of Carthage. And at the end, we'll move to Dr. Faustus, our main topic, and that's going to be a lengthy one as well. And these have just added their characters and also plot, all of these. So you will know Marlowe better. So we'll start with Dido the Queen of Carthage. And here we go. You have the context and introduction of the play here. And as we can see, Dido, the Queen of Carthage, was published in 1594. And it is about intense love, Dido's passionate infatuation with Aeneas. So I'll just brief this about this play. So as you can see, Dido, the Queen of Carthage by Marlowe, right? Published in 1594. And also maybe Thomas Nash has contributed also. And we have, right now we are diving into some ancient drama. So let's have some, laugh along the way also. Because if you read it seriously, you will find it a little bit sensitive, right? But anyway, we'll just move on. So this Dido, let's start with this queen who is the fierce queen of Carthage. And let me tell you, she's got it bad for this guy named like Aeneas, because she was head over heel for Aeneas. And Cupid's playing his little love game and makes Dido fall, head over heels for this dude. So it was kind of some serious love potion action. But anyway, guess what? Aeneas, being the heartbreaker that he is, he betrays poor Dido. And what does she do? She steals his oars and she's like, "You're not going anywhere, buddy." I guess that's what love makes you, a kind of little crazy, right? So she's not letting him go. And Aeneas is a kind of sneaky fellow, decides to show up in disguise just like a beggar, smooth move buddy, and Dido has like no idea like it's him. So it's his trick. But anyway, and things take a dark turn when Aeneas goes all dramatic and starts losing it over the memories of Troy. So, I mean, we all have our emotional moments, right? But this guy takes it to a like whole new level. And to make matter worse, Aeneas has a, beg Larbus for some help. Now, Larbus is also head over heels for Dido. So you can imagine the love triangle is forming here, and it brings chaos, and it's like a soap opera in ancient time. And it gets even crazier because Dido's sister Aina and Larbus decide to join the suicide club, and they're like, if we can't have love, we don't want to live. So we have also got some divine interference going with to Jupiter, Ganymede, and Cupid, Mercury, Venus, Juno, and all those mythical people. They're pulling the string, making things even more entertaining. And in the end, Dido's heartache becomes too much to bear, and she tragically takes her own life. It's sad ending, but it's a drama, right? So this is all hilarious Dido, Queen of Carthage. So shall we talk about, actually we were talking about, also we have added the character here, and you can see the character that we have just discussed, that Dido, Aeneas, Ascanius, Larbus, Achates, Illusion, and another is Clonthus, Sergestus, Aina, Jupiter, and many more. Anyway, plot was quite a very simple, and that you can see here. Dido falls hard for Aeneas, right? Because of love potion, that craziness ensues in Carthage. Then Dido's revenge is stealing Aeneas' oars, and then Aeneas goes incognito drama. Drama ensues, and then emotional breakdown. Aeneas mourns for Troy's fall. Love triangle happen. Chaos with Larbus, another Earbus something, and Dido and Aeneas. These Latin name makes me uncomfortable. Anyway, Anna and Irbus, I guess, join the suicide club, and divine interference spices up the plot, and gods and goddess pull the strings. Tragic ending. Dido takes her life. So in quite simple way, if you form it, it's just Dido's who falls head over heels Ennis, and then the cheating starts, and then the betrayal, and then the disguising things, and he mourns for Troy's fall, then love triangle, then Dido takes her life, and the rest of the people take there in the character, right? Okay, so that was all about Dido the Queen, and now we'll move to the Tamburlaine the Great quickly and see what is happening there. So here is the context here in your screen. You can just see here. So actually what happens there, I'll just make it very short, this context. This is actually the play all about power, conquest, and some serious wild character. So Marlowe takes this inspiration from real life Central Asian emperor Timur, also known as Tamerlane or Timur the Lame. So this play was written in the 1500s and is a kind of game changer in Elizabethan theatre. So it's like a breath of fresh air, breaking free from the clunky language and loose plots of earlier plays. So Marlowe brings kind of vibrant language and intense action and some serious brain power. So imagine Marlowe and Thomas Kyd's tragedy, the Spanish tragedy of Kids, having a race to be the first popular success on the London stage. And it's like a dramatic showdown, guys, like what kind of thing was happening in ancient Greek, right? So Tamburlaine comes out on top and winning over the audience with its captivating storytelling. So it's based on Pedro Marxia's earlier text, but Marlowe puts his own twist on things. Marlowe is known as one of the best writers of the university with crew, and his influence stretches way into the Jacobean period. And you can still hear echoes of his bombastic style in later plays. So he was kind of, left a legacy behind him. So Marlowe's got a way with the words, and his mighty line of blank verse becomes the gold standard for later playwrights. So in Tamburlaine, he takes us on a kind of wild ride through the rise and fall of Timur or Tamburlaine. So this Tamburlaine is a brutal, ambitious, and mysterious all at once. So Marlowe's poetic talent shines through as he explores Tamburlaine's character from different angles, showing us both his savage brutality and his grandeur. And now let's talk about the character, the Tamburlaine. We have got this Tamburlaine, who is the protagonist and who starts off as a Scythian shepherd and ends up as the king of Persia. So this was kind of big career change, right? And then we have got that Thecles Usumskane. I don't know what this kind of name is. Usumskane. Can you say Usumkasane? Usumkasane. But anyway, you can figure out because you all are nuts, right? And then we have that Theri Damas, who is actually Persian lord, later a follower of Tamburlaine in part 2. Then we have Xenocrat, who is actually the daughter of Soldan of Egypt, and in part 2 what happened, she marries Tamburlaine. So this is the character here. Now I'll just move to the plot, and plot is quite simple. He starts his journey as a shepherd and ends, as a king at the end. So now let's move to the plot quickly. So we start in, there's a place, Persepolis, where the Persian emperor Mycetes wants to get rid of Tamburlaine. But guess what? Tamburlaine convinces Mycetes' soldiers and even his own brother Khosrow to join him instead. So Tamburlaine's on a winning streak as he captures Xenocrat's hearts and defeats all his enemy. And he even, keeps the defeated emperor Bajazeth in a cage and uses him as footstool. It's like Conqueror's version of redecorating. And things get even more intense as Tamburlaine conquers Africa, becomes emperor of Persia, and sets his sights on Damascus. And then there is just Xenocrate actually convinces him to spare her father. And in part 2 what happened, that the play takes us, deeper into Tamburlaine's conquest, and he's grooming his sons to be conquerors too. But one of them, who was Kylie Fast, just wants to chill with his mom. And Tamburlaine's anger gets the best of him, and he kills poor Caliphus. And it even doesn't upset Tamburlaine. So as Tamburlaine continues his reign of terror, he faces challenges from Galapine, the son of defeated Emperor Bezazeth, and it's a battle of royal, and Tamburlaine comes out on top every time. But he doesn't stop there. He goes on to burn the Quran and claims that he is greater than God, and he commits all sorts of crazy acts. And in the end, Tamburlaine falls ill, but manages to defeat one last foe before he died, and he bids his son to conquer the world in his name. So that's all. Very simple plot, right? It's great. And then we'll move to the Jew of Malta. And what happened there? So it's a story about a Jew, and the full title, if you can ask me, it is Famous Tragedy of a Rich Jew of Malta. It's a 5-act tragedy in blank verse by Christopher Marlowe, and it was produced about 1590 and published in 1633. So Marlowe portrays another power-hungry figure is like the Jew Barabbas, and who is like in the he's a very villainous kind of guy, and he shows no scruple in self-advancement. But this figure is more closely incorporated within his society than either Tamburlaine or the supreme conqueror or the Faustus. So he was kind of lonely adventurer against the god. In the end, Barabbas is overcome not by a divine stroke but by the concerted action of his human enemies. So there is a difficulty in deciding how fully the extant text of the Jew of Malta represent Marlowe's original play, until for it was not published until 1633. Hey, so now this is all about context. Now just quickly see the characters. So as you can see, Barabbas was our main guy, okay, and he is Jew of Malta himself, and he's cunning, ruthless, and all about that self-advancement and his schemes. Again, we have Abigail. Abigail is Barabbas' daughter, and she's caught up in her father's wicked plans and faces some tough choice along the way. Another character is Farnese, and that Farnese is actually the governor of Malta, and he's got his own agenda and clashes with Barabbas throughout the play. It's like a battle of wits and power between these two. Again, we have Matthias, and this Matthias character is a young gentleman who falls for Abigail, and young love, actually they both end up in the midst of all this chaos. Again, we have Lodovic, another suitor of Abigail's heart. So again, there will be triangle love story. And then we have Bellamira. Bellamira is a courtesan and who adds some spice to the mix. She is not afraid to use her charms to get what she wants. Another is Kalimath. Kalimath is the Turkish prince, and he brings the threat of invasion to Malta. And it also stirs up the tension even more in the play. Again, we have Catherine, and Catherine is the governor's sister, and she's got her own role in the play and this dramatic tale. Again, we have Ethamar, and this Ethamar is Barabbas' loyal servant, and he's like the sidekick with a twisted sense of loyalty. And again, we have Pilia Borza, and that Pilia Borza, and also there is one character, servant, Bella Maria's servant. These are a kind of pair of witty and mischievous servants who provide comic relief. So this is character. Let's move to the plot, and here you can see all the plots are formed in pointers that will actually, through that you can easily understand all of these. So in the play, we kick things off with that Machiavel character, a ghostly figure inspired by the one and only Niccoli Machiavelli. So he's like, remember that this question also asked like which is the Machiavellian play of Christopher Marlowe, and some way they ask about or where this play was, how this play was inspired, and what was the real source. So these kind of questions come. So remember that Machiavelli. So if you can just ask him, what are you? He will say like, power is a moral, religion is a joke, and ignorance is the real sin. Okay, and here, after all this, now the story starts. Our main man, Barabbas, enters, who had a kind of a rough go of it, and the governor of Malta stripped him of everything for standing up against their shady antics. But instead of taking it lying down, Barabbas goes full on crazy mode with his trusty Ithamor, and he pulls off a full, sneaky scheme, making the governor's son and his buddy fight over his daughter's love. And then all this chaos starts. And guess what? Both the guys end up killing each other in a duel. But that's not enough for Barabbas. When his daughter Abigail runs away to become a nun, he loses it completely. He prisons her and the whole nunnery, strangles a friar who tries to preach repentance, and frames another friar for the murder. So kind of serious vengeance plan, right? But there's more. That Ithamor, who is the loyal slave, falls head over heels for a prostitute. Unfortunately, he spills the beans about all of sort of Barabbas' wicked deeds while he's drunk. And what does Barabbas do? He poisons the prostitute and her criminal friend too. And finally, when Barabbas is caught, he tries to fake his own death by chugging some, juice or potion. But his plans take a wild turn when he switches sides and becomes, governor again. He sets traps left and right, hoping to boil them alive and all that crazy stuff. Because, as you know, karma is a kind of real, the next. So the former governor double crosses Barabbas and he falls right into his own trap. And just like that, the play ends with Barabbas burning and cursing like there is no tomorrow. So that is the Jew of Malta, which is a roller coaster ride, if you can say, the ride of treachery, revenge, and really bad decision making. It's like a dark comedy with Barabbas playing the ultimate anti-hero. Remember, crime doesn't pay, and poison is not the answer to your problem, right? So that's all happened there. And the themes of the play, if you talk about, you can see the theme of religious hypocrisy. As you know, even when we read about his biography, Marlowe's biography, that he was atheist, right? He didn't believe in Jesus Christ. He didn't believe in any religion. So that you can see everywhere in his plays. He always talk about religion. So the major theme of his overall of his play is the religion. As you can see in Faustus, he doesn't believe in religion. He was more into knowledge, right? The character was seek for the knowledge. And then even in Tamburlaine also there is that he was not like fond of religion and all. And then we can see here also the Jew of Malta. So this is all happening there, right? So the religious and hypocrisy is the main theme everywhere. And then again here especially Machiavellian scheme. So there is just strategy, deception, and lots of schemes, right? Marlowe's took this theme from Machiavel, right? And then again the revenge, so that is the most themes that you'll get in any of the play. If you write about, there will be revenge, and especially in Elizabethan era. So revenge was there. So that's all about Jew of Malta, right? So we talked about Dido, Queen of Carthage, Tamburlaine the Great, Jew of Malta. Now we'll move to the Edward II. And then at the end we'll move to the Dr. Faustus. Okay, so here you can see the context here, a little bit about the play that you can read or take a screenshot if you want. Otherwise you'll get the notes and PPT in your Google Classroom. Not Google Classroom, now you have your own app, right? We have created one app. There we will add everything. And now let's dive into this piece of a Renaissance masterpiece, if you can say, by Marlowe. And there some serious stuff happens. And this play is like, you will find so many historical spices to make it more catchy. So now Marlowe got his inspiration, as we know, for this play especially, a guy named Raphael Holinshead and his chronicles. That question also asked once, and Marlowe was like, he was taking important from points from that, and he added his all material, all spices by himself. And well, it's all about the love story, or should I say bromance, between the king and his buddy Gaveston. So Marlowe had a thing for exploring same-sex affection in his play. So he was all about that love between dudes, right? So one thing, Marlowe couldn't resist a bit of forbidden love. He had Jove and Ganymede in Dido, Henry VIII and his minions, and the massacre, and even Neptune and Leander in Hero and Leander. So he was kind of rebel, right? And now he's bringing that same flavor in Edward and Gaveston. So let's not forget about the main part, because Edward's he actually ends in a tragic fate, because the poor guy gets bumped off on the order of Roger Mortimer. That's some serious backstabbing right there. And I guess you could say Edward didn't have the best luck when it came to friends and loyalty. Maybe he should have chosen his friends more carefully, right? One lesson you got: choose your friends wisely. So, are you ready for this roller coaster of power and struggle for within love and ultimate betrayal? Kind of Game of Thrones. I know most of you are a fan of Game of Thrones. And anyway, this is all about that. And the character is here. You see a lot of character, but you only have to pay attention for King Edward, Gaveston, Isabel, and Mortimer. So these are important character that you can focus. So plot is very simple, and I'll just brief it here. So as you can see here in the screen, all the summary is there in point. So Act 1 actually starts everything with our main man, who is Gaveston, making a grand return from exile. The king is all about, all excited about it, but the other side of the story, that the lords are like, we have to, gotta get rid of this dude as soon as possible. So they are so worried that Gaveston will distract the king from his kingly duties, like watching Netflix or eating too many snacks, right? Anyway, so they wanted to get rid of this guy because king might be distracted. That's not a strong reason, right? Is it? Write in the chat box. What do you think? In Act 2, things get even messier. And Edward, bless his heart, he's also stubborn as a mule and doesn't listen to anyone. He starts causing trouble, everywhere. And all the rebels are like, enough is enough, dude. Even his own wife, Isabella, jumps ships and joins the rebellion. Wow, that must have hurt him, right? Act 3. What happens? This actually takes a dark turn with Gaveston's murder. So these rebels have finally, killed that Gaveston. What happened? Edward gets naturally, all fired up and fights back, showing everyone who's boss. And at least he would say for a little while, because in Act 4, something is going to happen. And I guess you must have guessed what's going to happen. So Act 4 takes us on a little trip to France. Isabella and her son seek help from her brother, who's the king of the France. But let me tell you, diplomacy is not a strong suit, right? So they end up teaming up with the French lord, who promises them an army. And guess what? In Act 5, Edward finds himself in a real bad situation. He's hiding out in Ireland, but betrayal is lurking around every corner. He gets captured and imprisoned, and it gets even, you know, interesting when Isabella, who's that, remember that sneaky lady wants Edward to be dead or gone for good. So she hires an assassin named Lightborn. Sounds like a character straight out of a spy movie, right? Doesn't it? So they want to take out Edward, but little do they know that his son, Prince Edward, is not too happy about it. He becomes the new king and takes matter into his own hands. He executes Mortimer, the mastermind behind his father's demises. So justice served, my friends. Finally, so that's a wrap for the summary here. And what happened? The new King Edward III mourns his father's death, who is Edward II, and suspects his mom Isabella might have had hand in it. And who knows what will happen to her. We don't have that playwright Edward III. Anyway, it's like a royal kind of drama, full of betrayal, full of unexpected twist. But anyway, if there is some theme of rulership, the power of ploy, the crown of chronicles, deceit and betrayal, time waits for no one, and also there is kind of love between same gender there, right? So that is all about Edward. Now we are moving to our main topic, which is Dr. Faustus, and I hope that's what I guess you were waiting for, and you are, and I can see some excitement in the air. Nerds, I know that you all are excited, and I'm excited as well. And we have already finished everything, all the plays of Marlowe, and here our, what you can say, the main event of the evening, right? And here we're talking about Dr. Faustus. So Marlowe wrote Dr. Faustus, right? Remember the date, 1992 or 1993. That's quite important for you guys. And it's, as we know, it's an Elizabethan tragedy that tells the story of a guy named Faust, and who's got some serious ambition and makes a deal with the devil. Tell me, would you make a deal with the devil? Write yes or no in the chat box quickly. Of course, I'm kidding, man. Leave it. So now Marlowe probably wrote this play back in 1592 or 1593. So two versions of the play were published a few years later, giving us some different variation to talk about. And you won't believe the buzz around the early production of Dr. Faustus. Legends started swirling, and actual devils showed up on the stage during one performance, freaking out both the actors and the audience. Imagine the chaos it would have been. So some folks even claimed that they went bonkers after seeing it. Can you imagine? That serious was there, because the real, devil comes and kills Faustus, right? So these kind of, effect it had on audience. And that's how they depicted it also at this stage about the devil. But anyway, some folks even claimed like that they were just, went into hiding after seeing the play. And again, there is Edward Ilian, the lead actor of the Admiral's Men, right? And supposedly had a change of heart after that incident, and he dedicated his later years to doing good deeds. So can you imagine? Even the actor had that effect. You can imagine what kind of play it would have been. I think you should read the original text when you have time, or even read audiobooks regarding it. It will be really because the style he has, that his blank verse and all the effects will be there. Imagine the pleasure you'll get reading it, and also the fear that you will get out of it. Just take a moment and go and read about it. But anyway, let's not move away from what we are discussing here, right? So I was telling you, the actor, right, the leading actor Edward Ilian, actually what he stopped doing bad things, and he started dedicated his whole later years to doing good deeds. So it's like the devil's scare made him turn over a new leaf. So Dr. Faustus is actually based on an old tale of Faust legends. So some smart scholars think Marlowe got his inspiration from a popular translation called the English Faust book in 1592. There might have been an even earlier German edition in 1587, but it's as elusive as a disappearing magic trick. But anyway, that is all the context here. Let's see the characters because we have so many points to discuss, right? So character, you can see, I think most of you are familiar with most of the character here. Not so complicated, very easy. Faustus, Mephistopheles, Chorus, Old Man, Good Angel, Evil or Bad Angel, Lucifer, Wagoner, Clown, Robin, Raph. These are the characters. Let's quickly discuss like one sentence each. So Faustus, who's our protagonist or a kind of tragic hero, and who's also the star of this show. And Faustus is a genius scholar from where? Remember that, Wittenberg, Germany, who is actually willing to sell his soul to the devil himself for some supernatural power. And Mephistopheles is the devil that Faustus summons. So this guy is like Faustus' own personal demon consultant, and he's here to make sure Faustus gets what he wants in exchange for that, his soul, right? The character we have Chorus also. Chorus is this character is like our narrator or commentator, standing outside the story and giving us the inside scoop. So it's like having our very own Greek tragedy guy, remember? So again, we have Old Man. This mysterious figure shows up toward the end and tries to convince Faustus to repent and seek God's mercy. So it's like a divine intervention from an unexpected source. So the question is, will Faustus listen and turn his life around? Can we have Good Angel? Good Angel is a spirit that urges Faustus to do the right thing, or you can say his good conscience, and repent for his devilish action. So this angel is like Faustus' conscious and trying to steer him away from the dark side. Will he listen to that little voice inside his head? This is the question that we're going to explore. And again, we have Bad Angel or Evil Angel. It is actually the counterpart to the Good Angel. This spirit tries to convince Faustus to embrace his devilish ways and stay away from repentance. So it's like having a little devil on your shoulder, right? Whispering things like tempting thoughts, decisions, and all these things. Anyway, Lucifer, we have the big boss who comes at the end, right? The big boss of the devil, ruler of hell, and Mephistopheles' master. He's like the ultimate bad guy, pulling all the strings from down below. Watch out all the diabolic things that he asks. Who? Faustus, right? Another, we have Wagoner. And why Wagoner is important in this? Because he's a trusty servant of Faustus, and he's not just any servant. Wagoner is all about that dark magic and devil summoning. Thanks to his master's book, it's like having an apprentice who's ready to unleash some wicked spells. We have Clown also in the play, and this guy is pure comic relief. He's a hilarious character who works for Wagoner and provides some much needed laughter. So picture a ridiculous joker or jester doing outrageous things while Faustus is trying to be all serious and powerful. It's like a comedy show within a tragedy. We have Robin, who's innkeeper, who's also a bit of trickster. Robin and his friend Raphael dabble in some basic magic tricks, showing that even regular folks can have a knack of sorcery. It's like the not so glamorous side of magic, but still full of laugh, right? We have Raphael, Robin's buddy and partner in crime. So Raphael joins in on the magical antiques and adds to the comedy. In some version, he's known as some other. Anyway, so these are the characters, and then we'll move to the plots, and which is quite big. All the scenes, this is somewhere it is performed as scenes, or somewhere it is performed the act. So I have just made a list of all the scenes here, and one line summary of each that you can have the screenshot of it. But this plot is going to be long, guys, because we are starting right now, starting with the prologue. The play starts with the prologue, and It starts with a chorus here. He's a solo act ready to spill the beans on what's about to go down in this play. So, brace yourself because now we are diving into some crazy life of Faustus. So, the chorus tells us that the story won't be your typical, lovey-dovey or war-filled war-filled drama. It's all about the roller coaster ride of Faustus' life. So, get ready for some mind-blowing stuff. This is all choruses to the audience, right? Maybe the language is different, and here the language is different. But anyway, first off, Faustus was born to a humble parent in a tiny town called Rhodes. Right? Nothing fancy there. But then he heads to the big city, Wittenberg, to live with his relatives and study at a renowned German university. So this dude ain't your average student. He's got some brain, for days and earns himself a fancy title, Doctor of Divinity. So he's a pro at discussing all things about theology or religion and all. There's more. Our boy, this Faustus, has a secret and he's been dabbling in some dark arts. So he's got some taste of black magic and also known as necromancy. And where do we find Faustus when the curtain rises? It starts with that he's chilling in his study, surrounded by all sorts of mystical books and potions. It's like his own little mystical heaven. So the summary starts with the scene 1, Faustus' scholarly dilemma, and that's quite interesting also. Sorry for the disturbance. Anyway, for scene 1, Faustus' scholarly dilemma. So he's in his cabin. He's pondering the kind of new knowledge that'll really, tickle his fancy. And so Faustus starts by considering logic, quoting Aristotle and all. But he's like, nah, just debating doesn't cut it for me. I'm already a pro at arguing. So he thinks that he's better than Aristotle. Then he moves on to medicine and quoting Galen and thinks, yeah, curing people and performing miracle could be cool. But hold up, he's already a famous doctor. And he's like, hey, fame didn't do it for me. Next, he takes law. So this question also came in the exam, if I remember it correctly. What subject he studied? So it was medicine, it was mathematics, right? It was logic, philosophy, law, right? Divinity, of course. And finally, the magic or the necromancy stuff. So next up is law, where Faustus quotes Justinian, the Byzantium emperor. But he's like, now too petty dealing with boring stuff, right? I need something bigger than all these things. So he turns to divinity, religion, and theology, thinking it might give him a broader perspective. But what happened? Then he reads this quote from St. Jerome's Bible about sin and death. And he's like, no way, man. I ain't buying that because his thing is not true. Finally, Faustus fixes his mind where? On magic, thinking it'll make him a powerful god. So he's all like hyped up about sending his spirit to fetch him fancy stuff from the ends of the world, learning secret knowledge, and even becoming the king of the Germany. So just when Faustus is done with his soliloquy, his trusty servant Wagner enters the scene. And Faustus tells Wagner to bring his buddies Waldus and Cornelius because he wants to learn the art of magic. But wait, things get interesting. A good angel and evil angel show up and playing like tug of war with Faustus' conscience. And the good angel tells him to read the scriptures instead of messing with magic. While the evil angel or bad angel, tells him on to go all in the dark arts. Guess which one Faustus chooses. Tell me, which one would you choose? You curious nerds, I know what you'll choose. Anyway, yep. So the evil spirit wins and Faustus is like, hell yeah, magic is my jam. So he's like super pumped up at the power of wonders that magic will bring him, and the entrance of Waldus and Cornelius are ready to teach him the secrets of the dark side. So these dudes, promised Faustus some mind-blowing magic skills, and Faustus is like, I'm all in, guys. And they even plan to have a nice dinner together. So, if you talk about a good combo pack for the dinner, then it's good, right? Magic and the munchies. But anyway, this is all about scene one. Scene second, what happened? Faustus and the jokesters, scholars. Let me what happens there. Let me tell you. So these two smart guys, scholars, visit Faustus, right? But guess what? Wagner, the jester that he is, starts cracking jokes at their expense. He tells them Faustus is meeting with Valdus and Cornelius, these dudes known for their black arts, and you can imagine now the scholar freaking out, thinking Faustus might be dabbling in that damned art too. So that's what happened in scene 2. It is not too big, very small scene. And again, scene 3, Faustus gets his devilish groove on. Excuse me. So picture this. I'm talking about scene 3. So picture this. Faustus standing in a magical circle, all serious and chanting in Latin. And guess who's watching from the shadow? 4 devils and Lucifer himself, who's the big boss of hell, right? Faustus renounces heaven and God, pledges his loyalty to hell, and demands Mephistopheles, the devil, to serve him. And you won't believe it, Mephistopheles actually shows up, but Faustus wants him to dress as a what? Franciscan friar, because that holy shape becomes a devil best, right? Faustus is quite the fashion guru at that time, if you can say, because he's asking him to, become a Franciscan friar. But anyway, let's move to the point. Faustus start, asking questions to Mephistopheles about Lucifer and hell. And turns out these devils were once an angel who rebelled against God, and God is stuck in hell for eternity. Faustus is all like, hey, you are on earth right now, right? Not hell, not in hell. But Mephistopheles was like, insists that being separated from God is hell enough for them. So Faustus brushes it off, fixes his bargaining skills, and offers his soul to Lucifer in exchange for 24 years of Mephistopheles' service. So Mephistopheles is like, let me check with my boss and I'll get back to you. And Faustus can't wait for his return, though. He's thirsty for all that devilish power. And in scene 4, Wagner's clowning around. So in scene 4, things get a little funny, because Wagner, the servant of Faustus, tries to convince a clown to be his servant for 7 years. The clown is broke, and Wagner jokes that he'd probably sell his soul to the devil for some tasty mutton. So the clown is like, hey. So clown was saying like, hey, if it's well-seasoned mutton, count me in. And at first he agrees to be Wagner's servant, but then he changes his mind real quick. Wagner gets all serious, and then he changes his mind again. And Wagner, again, he gets a little bit serious and threatens to cast a spell on him. And guess what? He summons the devil to scare the poor clown into submission. So that kind of joke is there. So the clown is terrified and finally agrees to be Wagner's servant. And after that, the clown asks Wagner if he can learn to do some tricks too. And you know what? Wagner promises that he'll teach the clown how to transform into any animal. But there is also a catch, that Wagner insists on being called Master Wagner. So that is in scene 4. And what happened in scene 5? You can see Faustus' soul-shaking decision. So here things are getting intense. And our main hero, who's Faustus, is having some serious second thought about selling his soul. Faustus starts, doubting if there is really any punishment after death. He's like, come on, are these just silly stories? No way I'm going to suffer for eternity. And the good angel tries to reason with him, telling him to think about heaven and heavenly stuff. But Faustus is like, brushes it off and thinking that God doesn't love him anyway. So it's kind of blow for his self-esteem, right? So the good and evil angel shows up again and giving Faustus their 2 cents. And The good angel keeps pushing him to think about heaven, but the evil angel convinces him that the riches he'll gain from his deal with the devil are totally worth it. So Faustus becomes a little bit greedy, right? Faustus calls back his demon buddy Mephistopheles, and who brings news that Lucifer has accepted his soul for service deed. So Faustus is like, okay, let me do this. Let's sign the contract. But Faustus tries to write the contract in his own blood. So Mephistopheles goes to get some, fire to loosen up the blood, and Faustus starts having second thought again. He wonders if his own blood is warning him not to go through. But what? He's in dilemma, right? So when Mephistopheles returns, Faustus signs the deed and discovers a message on his arm that says, "Oh man, fly." So that was the message. And Mephistopheles presents a bunch of devils who deck Faustus out with some fancy crown and clothes. Faustus is like, all right, doubt aside, let's go all in. So he hands over the deed, sealing the deal with the devil. So Faustus starts asking Mephistopheles about the location of hell, and the devil dude says it's everywhere. Hell is everywhere. And Faustus asks for a wife, but Mephistopheles offers him a she-devil instead. And Faustus politely declined. Can't blame him for not wanting a devil as a spouse, right? Mephistopheles gives Faustus a magic spell book and tells him to read it carefully. Again, we have in scene 6 now, Robin and Raphael's magical misadventure. Let's see what happens there. So while Faustus is in his deep in his soul-selling drama, we have got some comic relief, as we know, Robin and Raph. And Robin is like a stable hand, stumbles upon one of Faustus' magic book, and guess what it is? He's trying his best to learn the spells, but it doesn't happen. So Robin calls his buddy Raphael, and they had to, go to the bar together. Robin promises to conjure up any kind of wine Raphael desire. So that's kind of good, handy skill, right? But anyway, now again chorus comes here. It actually tells Wagner's Dragon Adventure. And let's see what happens there. So it's kind of dragon action now. Wagner takes the stage and spills the bean on how Faustus hopped on dragon, pulled a chariot, and soared through the heavens to learn all about astronomy. So it's a kind of, out of this world field trip, right? Now Faustus is off to explore the coast and kingdom of the world, with Rome being his next destination. So the guy is really racking up those frequent flyer miles, if you can say. So scene 7, pranking the Pope. That scene is quite important. And you know what happened in this scene? Faustus, spills the tea to Mephistopheles about his European travels, and from Germany to France and then Italy. So he's been like globe trotting like a boss. So Faustus is dying to see Rome and its famous monument, and guess what? They have arrived, but hold on, it's a day of feasting in Rome to celebrate the Pope's victory. So what do Faustus and Mephistopheles decides to do? Play some wicked tricks on the Pope. Picture this: Faustus and Mephistopheles disguise themselves as cardinals and sneak into the Pope's private chamber. And the Pope comes in with his crew, and there is this prisoner named Bruno. He tried to become Pope with the backing of the German Emperor, but things didn't quite work out for him. The Pope starts spewing threats and makes Bruno swear alliance to him. And meanwhile, Faustus and Mephistopheles are like, hold our potions, we got this. Right? So they tricked the Pope by taking Bruno away, but instead of tossing him in prison, they gave him a speedy horse and sent him back to Germany. Later, the Pope confronts the two cardinals who Faustus and Mephistopheles is impersonated, right? And those poor cardinals have no clue what's going on and deny ever having custody of Bruno. So guess where they end up? The dungeons, guys. So Faustus and Mephistopheles, again, being the sneaky devils that they are, watch the chaos unfold while invisible. So they have some good laugh at the Pope's expense, but it doesn't end up there. During dinner, Faustus and Mephistopheles turn invisible, start cursing, loudly, and even snatch dishes and food from the table. The churchmen are freaking out, thinking there is a ghost haunting their meal. The Pope starts crossing himself like crazy, and much to the annoyance of Faustus and Mephistopheles. So, what does Faustus do here? He playfully smacks the Pope's ear. The Pope and his crew freaks out and run away. So, the entrance of some kind of, friar singing a dirge, and what can happen. So, anyway, Faustus and Mephistopheles can't resist causing some more chaos. They beat the friar, throw fireworks at them, and make their grand escape. Scene 8 is about Robin and Raphael's prank gone wrong, that we'll talk about now. And here's some funny part, right? And Robin and Raphael are a mischievous duo, as we know. Mischievous duo. And these have stolen a cup from a tavern. And the vintner is hot on their trail and demanding they give it back. Classic case of it wasn't me, denial kind of thing. So, but wait, Robin decides to summon Mephistopheles to scare off the vintner. And let's just say Mephistopheles is not amused. He threatens to turn Robin and Raphael into an ape and a dog. And the two friends try to brush it off as a joke, but Mephistopheles storms off, fuming and declaring he's joining Faustus in Turkey. Looks like the prankster got pranked, right? Anyway, chorus 3, Faustus is back in Germany. And here chorus says that he's become quite famous and is even invited to the palace of German Emperor Charles V. And it's time to see what Faustus has been up to. Right. And scene 9, spectacle at the Emperor's court. And what happens there? So scene 9, and you see it is set at the Emperor's court, and there are a bunch of dudes chanting about Faustus and his crazy promises. And apparently he's going to summon Alexander the Great, the conqueror himself. They wake up their hungover friend Benvolio and tell him to come down and witness the spectacle. Faustus enters the emperor, thanks him for saving his buddy Bruno from the Pope. Faustus is all humble and says he's ready to grant any wish the emperor has. Meanwhile, Benvolio, watching from above, can't help but comment that Faustus doesn't look like your typical conjurer. So the emperor asks to see Alexander the Great and his lover, but Faustus can't summon their actual bodies. Instead, he creates some spirit version of them. So one night in the court, that's actually Benvolio in some version, doesn't buy it and compares it to some crazy myth about turning into a stag. But then magic happened. Faustus conjures up a vision of Alexander embracing his lover, and the knight suddenly sprout a pair of antlers. And the knight begs for mercy, and the emperor asks Faustus to remove the horns. So Faustus obliges, but not before giving the knight a lesson in respecting scholars. So now here's where things get wild. Benvolio, along with his buddies, plots an attack on Faustus. So they're so mad about their damaged reputation that they want revenge. They plan to ambush Faustus, steal his treasure, and teach him a lesson. So when Faustus arrives, Benvolio stabs him and cuts off his head. But hold on your hats, guys, because Faustus rises from the dead with his head magically restored, and he tells them they are fooled because his life belongs to Mephistopheles and can't be taken by anyone. Faustus summons Mephistopheles and his gang of devil. He orders them to drag Benvolio and his friends to hell for their attack. But wait, there is twist. Faustus changes his mind and decides to punish them by dragging them through thorns and tossing them off the cliff. Guys, that's Faustus showing his enemies that who's the boss, right? Anyway, as the men and devils makes their exit, some soldiers show up, and but fear not. Faustus summons more demons to scare them away. Guys, I wanna see those demons anyway. And guess what? Benvolio, Frederick, and Martino come back all beaten up, and they're horrified by their fate and decide to hide in a castle to avoid the world's mockery. Scene 10, the hilarious horse courses incident. And what happens there actually? It's also a quite kind of big scene. But anyway, things are about to get wild, guys. So Faustus encounters a horse courser and decides to sell him his horse. But here's the catch. Faustus warns the guy not to ride the horse in the water. You can already guess where that is going, right? So Faustus starts thinking about his upcoming contract expiration, that his contract is going to expire with Lucifer. And guess what? The horse courser comes back soaking wet and complaining that the horse turned into a pile of straw when he took into the stream. Now the horse, courser wants his money back and tries everything to wake up Faustus. He yells in his ear, pulls on his leg, and guess what happens? The leg actually breaks off, and Faustus wakes up screaming like crazy, and the horse courser takes off with the leg. Anyway, Faustus' leg is actually immediately restored. It's like a magical prank, and Faustus finds it hilarious. So it's kind of just another day in the life of supernatural scholar, right? So guess what? And who shows up next? It's Wagner, Faustus' loyal servant, right? Bringing news that the Duke of Van Holt wants to see him. Faustus agrees to go, and off they go on their next adventure. There is another one bonus scene here, because Robin and Raphael decide to take a break and have a few drinks at a tavern. They overhear a carter and the horse courser talking about Faustus and all his story. So the carter tells him that how Faustus stopped him on the road and asked to buy some to eat. And can you believe it? Faustus ends up eating the entire wagon load of hay. That's some serious appetite, if you can say. But there's more. The horse courser chimes in and reveals that he took Faustus' leg as revenge, and he's even keeping it at his place. So a kind of trophy, right? Anyway, Robin decides that he wants to find Faustus too, but not before having a few drinks. So that's how this scene ends. And in scene 11, Faustus illusions show. And what happens there? So imagine that we are now at the court of the Duke of Van Holt, and it's a showtime for Faustus. He's a master at conjuring up a stunning illusion, and the Duke is absolutely impressed. However, the Duchess doesn't seem to enjoy the show. Faustus, being the charming guy he is, asks the Duchess what she wants, and you won't believe it. She asks for a dish of, ripe grapes. Well, Faustus works his magic, and Mephistopheles brings her some delicious grapes. And that's some next level of hospitality, right? And anyway, the Duke and Duchess are thrilled with Faustus' performance and promises to reward him generously. So looks like our Faustus illusion are a big hit, and he's on his way to fame and fortune. So that's what happened in the scene 11. And here we can see Chorus appearing again, and Wagner as the fortune teller. So Wagner thinks Faustus is about to kick the bucket because he gave Wagner all his money. Faustus is out partying with his scholars instead of acting like a dying man. And scene 12, Faustus meets Helen, and that's quite important scene also. And Faustus is chilling with his scholar, right? All the buddies with him. And when one of them asks if he can summon the Helen of Greece, the hottest kind of lady ever, right? And you won't believe it, Faustus actually brings her on a stage. The scholars are like, are over the moon with joy. And then this old man shows up and tries to talk some sense into Faustus, telling him to repent. Faustus gets all emotional, and Mephistopheles hands him a dagger. But hold up, the old man convinces Faustus to ask God for mercy. And he's like, dude, there is an angel right above your head ready to shower you with some grace. Why don't you just ask forgiveness? And the old man leaves, and Mephistopheles threatens Faustus to stick with his deal with Lucifer. And that is our final scene, Faustus' final hour. And you know what happens there is the last night of Faustus' life, and he spills the beans to scholars about his deal with the devil. So they're horrified and desperately want to save him, but Faustus is like, nah, too late for that, guys. So the scholars head off to pray for him while Faustus sees a vision of hell. So as the clock strikes 11, Faustus begs for more time, wishing it would slow down or stop. He even tries to negotiate with God, asking for reduced sentence in hell. He's basically like, I'd rather be a beast and disappear than face that damnation. So he curses his parents, himself, and everything inside. But last, guys, midnight strikes, and the devil swoops in to carry Faustus away while he yells, "No, don't come, Lucifer, I'll burn my book." And that's how it is. An epilogue is also there, and the chorus enters and drops some knowledge on us, saying we should only wonder about lawful things and not sell our souls for forbidden knowledge. So that's how the play ends, right? So that was all about plot. Now let's have a little bit analysis of the play, what actually goes down there and how we can analyze. So as we know that Faustus, the super smart German, right, and who's thirsty for knowledge, wealth, and power, but and also he's willing to sell his soul to the devil. So this is all. Anyway, analysis you can see, and anyway the text will be there. So that's all about analysis here. We have themes, so you can see the themes. All important themes are listed here. And the first theme, the pursuit of knowledge and power, good versus evil, religion and spirituality. These are all themes. So as we can see, the pursuit of knowledge, even especially in the beginning of the play, Faustus is all about that thirst for knowledge and craving for power. So he's willing to go extreme length, even selling his soul to the devil just to gain more knowledge and control over the world. It raises some questions about the limits of human ambition and consequences of our desire, right? And then there is a theme of good versus evil. So throughout the play, there is a constant battle between good and evil. Faustus has that good and evil angel whispering in his ear, representing his internal struggle between right and wrong. So it delves into the choices we make and the moral conflict we face, right? Religion and spirituality, which is also another important theme. So Dr. Faustus is deeply rooted in that Christian belief that we have already talked about in the beginning of the session, right? And it explores the relationship between God and also the devil and the human soul. It dwells into the themes of sin, repentance, and damnation, challenging the audience to reflect on their own faith and belief. Pride and hubris. So this is also like Faustus' downfall can be attributed to his excessive pride and arrogance, his desire for greatness, and his belief that he can outsmart the powers of heaven lead to his ultimate downfall, right? It serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked hubris. Free will and fate. The play also plays an important role of raises question about the extent of human free will and the influence of fate. And does Faustus have all the freedom to choose his own path, or is destiny already predetermined? So it's a philosophical kind of conundrum that gets us thinking about the complexity of our own choices and destiny. Last, we have redemption and damnation. The theme of redemption turns throughout the play. Faustus grapples with the possibility of repentance and salvation, but his choices ultimately lead to his damnation, right? We have symbols of the scholar's robe, which represent his academic pursuit and his initial quest for knowledge. Then we have the book. Book is also a significant symbol because it represents knowledge and power. It also symbolizes Faustus' desire to attain forbidden knowledge and his willingness to make a pact with the devil. Then we have the contract. In the contract signed by Faustus and Lucifer symbolizes the binding agreement between Faustus and the forces of evil. It represents the irrevocable nature of Faustus' decision to trade his soul for worldly desire. We have magic and conjuring. Magic and conjuring are symbolic of Faustus' attempts to control the natural and supernatural world. The good and evil angel, they're also a kind of symbol. And Helen of Troy is there, which symbolizes the beauty, desire, and worldly pleasure. 7 deadly sins we have: pride, greed, lust, envy, gluttony, wrath, and sloths. These symbolize the moral corruption that plague humanity. Lucifer and the devil symbolize evil, temptation, and the forces of darkness. We have hell, which symbolizes eternal punishment and damnation. Then we have the clock, and that clock symbolizes the passage of time and the countdown of Faustus' impending doom. It serves as a constant reminder of the limited nature of human existence and the consequences of wasting time on earthly pursuit. We have motives, knowledge, and ambition that drove Faustus mad, heaven and hell, light and darkness, sin and redemption, magic and supernatural element, mask and disguise, fate and free will, decay and degradation. So that is themes. We have some quotes here, guys. You can see in Act 1, Scene 1, what happened? Hell hath no limits, nor is circumscribed in oneself place, for where we are is hell. And where hell is, there must we ever be. Faustus, thou art damned. That who says? Good angel, Act 2, Scene 1. Faustus, revenge, yet God will pity thee. Old man, Act 5. Why this is hell, nor am I out of it? Mephistopheles, Act 2, Scene 3. I charge thee, wait upon me whilst I live, to do whatever Faustus shall command, be it to make the moon drop from her sphere, or the ocean to overwhelm the world. Faustus, Act 1, Scene 1. Again, we have 5 more quotes here. And it is said by Faustus in Act 1, Scene 1. It says, "Oh, what a world of profit and delight, of power, of honor, of omnipotence is promised to this studious artisan." Chorus says in prologue, "Cut is the branch that might have grown full straight, and burned is Apollo's laurel bough, that sometime grew within this learned man." Act 2, Scene 3, Mephistopheles says, "Why then, Faustus? Hell calls for ride, and with a roaring voice says, Faustus, come, thine hour is almost come." Very strong line, right? Was this the face that launched 1,000 ships and burned the topless towers of William? That is, Faustus says, Act 5, Scene 1, about Helen, right? Chorus in epilogue at the ending, what happened? Faustus is gone. Regard his hellish fall, whose friendful fortune may exhort the wise, only to wonder at unlawful things. So guys, that's how the play ends, and that's how our session ends. So nerds, I'll see you tomorrow, and that was kind of big, long class, I guess. And tomorrow we are going to discuss who? Our wordsmith, Shakespeare. So be there. Of course, hit the like button and subscribe this channel to more. And of course, if you haven't enrolled into our course, today is the right time. You should do it. Everything you'll find there, because we still have 6 months to go for your exam, and still so much time, but you should start right away. Okay, so thank you guys, thank you so much, and have a good night, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye.